Just 1 second, folks. Slight delay here.
Freezer. Did you look in the freezer?
Yeah, I decided to make that as a thumbnail image. It's a video.
Well, I guess this is one way to shut her up.
آنچه که ملاحظه کردید، صدایی که شنیدید، فضای غبارآلوده استودیو.
Thankful to Gina Milan for this little quick video. This is actually another operation. This was not the operation which ended the Ayatollah. We've had to bomb Iran several times.
Well, I guess this is one way to shut her up.
That's kind of my thought about what's going on with the Iran-Persia conflict. For the few of you who may not know, the United States and Israel, and I believe some other allies, decided they've had enough of the proxy war that the Muslim dictatorship of Persia that has been pushing on the America and the world. They've been responsible for numerous terrorist attacks around the world. And I think what happened is we've just now been in the right time and place to say enough is enough. And despite the efforts of the United Nations and others to try to, bolster this regime, it has been decided that we're sick and tired of Iran. So this has been a long time in coming. This organization, the Khomeini and the cowardly thugs that have run Iran for decades, have needed to have been eliminated a long time ago. Now, you can say that there may be some American casualties in this. There may be retaliatory strikes. I know they lobbed some missiles and drones at a bunch of the Gulf states where we had U.S. bases, and of course they did lob a bunch of bombs at Israel. But on the flip side, they're going to keep doing that anyway. So it's like, if we had waited a year to do this, who knows how many terrorist attacks they would have fomented and how many innocent people would have been killed that way, not to mention the thousands of Iranian citizens that were being massacred when they protesting yet again to try to end the regime. Let's not forget, there have been multiple protests for years now from people sick and tired of the Islamic regime. So good news is it is better for the world that Khomeini is now rotting in hell next to Muhammad and all the other dictators that have ran Iran into the ground. This was Khomeini Media's. This is his own page here. So this is the propaganda of the guy's media. He's claiming all these people are supposedly mourning the death of Khomeini. I don't know if this is AI or what it is. And like I said, there are some people that do miss him. They may try to commit acts of violence. They're trying to make him to some kind of martyr, which he wasn't. This is a nice house he lived in. By the way, most Iranians were living in abject poverty and being starved to death while this guy was living in a mansion. They're calling it a modest house. I guarantee, look at this guy. He had a flat screen TV. Most people in the Muslim world, they don't have this luxury. They have to scrounge to get food to eat. not to mention they're being hunted down by their own leader. Overall, yes, this is a good thing, but let's not forget, folks, that not too long ago, we liberated a place called Afghanistan, and we kept it from being, destroyed by communism. And not long after that, that turned out to be kind of a mixed bag there, because we all know what happened after not too long after that. And we also went in and kicked Saddam Hussein's butt in Iraq a few years ago, and then we kept him in power because he was supposed to be a stabilizing agent and keep terrorism from happening. And then we had to go in there again and get rid of him. I do know this, that the God-hating leftists in our country seem to love Khomeini and the Iranian regime, so that's a good sign that we did the right thing. But time will tell. And I don't blame people for saying no, we don't need to go to war, because there's been too many screw-ups done by the United States of America where we went in and we got rid of a leader and we ended up with something worse. So I know some people may call them, anti-America, or whatever. No, I don't believe that. I still have a lot of doubt regarding this nation. Speaking of nations, we're going to have elections. We're having elections here in this wonderful nation, so we don't end up like Iran. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that, because there is a lot of rules that have been done here. March 3rd is the the primary elections in the state of Arkansas. Yes, there are some Democrats still here, thanks in large part to special interests that want to keep them in power. And one of the things is a new rule that prohibits registered Democrats from voting in GOP primaries. I have been asked about this. I was a little confused about this myself, but here is a rule that's been enacted. Now, this article fails to mention one major important thing that I'll talk about that a little bit, but I'll read part of this article right here. This is done by Antoinette Grajeda of Arkansas Advocates, dated January 2026. So again, this was some people are early voting. I think started February 17th. I think so. Yeah, not too long for people to know what's going on. I'll just write here where it talks about the rules. Arkansas's preferential primary elections have been open, meaning voters can choose if they want to vote ballot with Republican candidates or one with Democrat candidates, regardless of the voter's registered party affiliation. So in the past, what would happen was we would have elections. For the most part of Arkansas's history, Democrats dominated the state. A few years ago, thanks to efforts of conservatives, members of the Tea Party movement, like myself and others, we flipped this state red. A lot of Democrats and their consultant henchmen, what they decided to do is change their affiliation from Democrat to Republican, run for office as Republican, and a lot of consultants that worked for the organizations that have kept Arkansas last for years, groups like the Chamber of Commerce, the Municipal League, the Arkansas Association of Counties, Tyson's, Walmart, J.B. Hunt, the big, massive utility companies, big healthcare. They had their consultants, folks like Chris Caldwell and Chase Duggar and others, basically run the Republican Party. They became campaign managers. They're able to shut down committee meetings. They decide the rules, and they stab conservative efforts in the back. And one of their tactics they use is to get Democrats to vote in the Republican primary. And they will simply say, hey, Democrats, go vote for this person. This was in an Arkansas Senate special election in the Russellville area where Bob Bailey was the conservative candidate. And he had ran against a person that the establishment wanted. Bob Bailey was a 2018 Republican special election candidate for District 16 of Arkansas Senate. This was after the death of Senator Greg Standridge. and it ended up being Breanne Davis who won that election. Now, I was part of the effort to support Bob Bailey because he was the conservative in that race. And when we looked at the stats, we won the Republican vote, but Democrats were able to be crossed over and put into that primary. And we've seen lots of other examples of this. And so conservatives for years had been pushing to say we need to keep Democrats out of the Republican primary. And actually, during the 2025 convention, actually, no, it was a 2024 convention. I'm mixed up here. During the last Republican Party state convention, there was an effort to pass a rule stating that we should have closed primaries. It was the 2024 state convention. There was lots of efforts to sabotage that, and a lot of roadblocks were put to keep that from being enacted. First, the Republican Party of Arkansas had an early state committee meeting to require a two-thirds threshold to pass something in the convention. That didn't work. Then they tried another tactic where they didn't put those rule changes on the agenda, which is something they're not allowed to do. The Republican state convention decided to put those rules on the agenda anyway. And then after they had duly passed those rule changes, the cowards within the Republican Party of Arkansas leadership, under the direction of the consultant class like Chris Caldwell, nullified the state convention, which is something they had no right to do. Unfortunately, there's no legal recourse to deal with this. And so this was in 2024. So now we're here, this rule change. This was done earlier in 2026. The Republican Party voted at its state committee meeting in June to approve a new rule that prohibits registered Democrats from voting in Republican primaries. And this is what it says. Qualified electors shall not be a registered Democrat before being issued a Republican primary ballot to vote in the Republican primary election, according to the updated party rules. Republican Party of Arkansas Chairman Joseph Wood said the purpose of the rule is to prevent voters registered as Democrats from participating in Republican primary elections. So basically what these people did, they were forced to do this because we were constantly demanding this type of reform. And this is the main quote I want to put here for folks that are watching this, wondering what's going on. And I'll put the link to this article so you can see it on your own. You can read it. You can read the entire thing at your leisure. But the bottom line is you can't be registered as a Democrat and vote in a Republican primary. You can be optional. And they're going to give credit to this Senator Joshua Bryant, but he's not the one who pushed this rule. And a matter of fact, we wanted it to be where you had to be registered as Republican to vote in the Republican primary. By the way, Democrat primaries remain open. So yeah, you can be listed as optional. Oddly enough, a lot of people have been put as optional without them knowing about it, and we're not sure why. Also, if you choose to vote in a Republican primary election, you can't vote in a Democrat primary runoff and vice versa. So once you vote Republican, you're voting Republican in the runoff elections. For those who don't know, if someone does not get 50% in the primary election, they are then subject to what's known as a runoff between the top two candidates. And then from there, we then have the general election, which will be in November. Now, one of the other things we've been fighting over is the paper ballots. As you can see, these are the ES&S voting machines, which can be hacked, can be sabotaged, or even can be damaged by an electrical error. But there's another, and yet there is another rule within that rule in a certain area. And I'm going to go over that here in just a little bit. Let me share this tab. So, folks, this is during the years ago, there was 2 incidents involved in Arkansas Senate locations. One was the death of Republican Senator Gary Stubblefield, who was a great conservative leader, and the other was the resignation of State Representative Carlton Wing. And so there was, long story short, and this talks a little bit about this. Actually, I think this is by the same person, Antoinette Grajeda. This is on Conduit's page. Of course, again, conservatives usually give credit to people who actually we don't talk about these issues. But there was an effort to try to delay these votes to later on, but people wanted to replace Gary Stubblefield, and of course, this House race was involved in that. So they said, let's just, and after judicial fights, this was eventually put onto the March 3rd ballot. So District 70 people will have a vote where they have to get a second ballot to vote in that race. And the Republic, and so there you could vote. The Democrat is a guy named Alex Holloway, and the Republican is Bo Renshaw. And since I'm a Republican, I can say I voted for Bo Renshaw. Again, this mentions the rule about new Republican rule bans registered Democrats from voting the Republican primary. So Democrats can vote in their primary, but then vote in this race. And Republicans, same thing. And again, if you're in District 70 and you only receive one ballot, you can go back and get that second ballot because you're supposed to be getting 2. And so hopefully people know this, figure it out. But here's the Conduit News article. Unfortunately, right now we're still stuck with, like I said, the voting machines. And we don't know what to do regarding getting rid of those, going to paper ballots. There was an effort in Independence County, led by Brian Norris, to switch us over to paper ballots. The quorum court somehow kicked people out, just canceled that effort right before the election. And so Brian Norris has filed a lawsuit regarding that. Also interesting, as I have mentioned before, I mentioned in a previous video, there is a slandering effort done by the cowardly consultant Chris Caldwell to try to claim that Brian Norris is somehow erasing freedom. And here's actually a post since I made a broadcast about this, made by Brian Norris about this issue. It says Senator Hammer and Judge Harrison. These are, by the way, 2 separate candidates standing with President Trump to secure our elections and Constitution. And then it says Brian Norris empowering the radical left to destroy our Constitution and erase our freedoms. It's based on absolutely nothing. It's got some regular AI images in the background. Here's a basic quote. Prove it. Arkansas conservatives won't because it's run by a coward named Chris Caldwell. And again, this isn't endorsing any other candidate. Point of fact, Harrison, Judge Kathy Harrison, has denounced this ad and has even threatened legal action against the person who made it, Arkansas conservative. So I will see if she sues Chris Caldwell. I hope she does. and someone is talking about the machines. And you have to be careful because a lot of people depend on these mail outs. I don't know if this will work or not. A lot of people, they just look at ads and they go, okay, I'm fine. And then they just go based upon that. Actually, let me go take a look real quick at the Arkansas Secretary of State's website and see if there's, the last time I looked at it, and I'll show you the image here, there was zero funds at all in regards to this organization. Here we go. That's the organization that put out the slandering lie text. And I don't know what other ads they may have put out as well. They may have put out something else, and I don't even know about it. You can go to the Arkansas Secretary of State under Ethics Filings, and then search for Ethics Filings. And then let me see. It actually is a little bit difficult for search for things here. Give me just a moment. Committee name or acronym. Here we go. I found it. Oh, let me go back to share screen and get rid of this image. Still nothing as of March 1st, 2026. The unethical coward Chris Caldwell has not displayed who funded Arkansas conservatives. He filed this February 25th. It's been several days, and we have zero donations, no data available, no documents, signature card. Let's see the signature card here. I guess this is just this is just the official paperwork of what he filed. There it is. I, Chris Caldwell, do swear and affirm that the signature provided below belongs to me. I agree that by signing this document, my signature for purposes of electronic reporting will take on the form of a username and password to be provided by the Arkansas Secretary of State, and I understand that when using the aforementioned username and password, I am swearing and affirming that all information entered, filed, and contained on the Independent Expenditure Committee report therein is true and correct. Please. And it has all this information here. There's this contact number. And it was Brianna Owens, just happened to be the notary who did this. But he put out text from this organization, but has still yet to show who contributed to it. Obviously, somebody paid for it because the texts are out there. Now, here's another Caldwell group to say, well, maybe he doesn't know what he's doing. Well, this is the example of another Chris Caldwell organization right here. And here you can see the funding. This group was bankrupted by the Rockefellers, Bank the Ozarks, Ronald Cameron. I don't know who that is, but so this guy does this. He bundles an organization, and you can see the money this guy handles. I don't know if he took money from this organization and siphoned it off. This is the kind of dirty, underhanded stuff that you need to find out about before you go vote, before you support a candidate. Who's actually running the show from behind the scenes. And this reminds me of the movie Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. And in the movie, there was a villain named Taylor. Here he is right there. This guy right here is Taylor. And this is a senator from a state. They don't name the state. And this guy is bullying him into betraying Mr. Smith. And at first, the guy agrees. He bends to this guy's pressure, and he goes ahead and betrays Mr. Smith. But later on, he develops a conscience and says, "No, I can't take it anymore." And he comes in and says, "I'm a crook." And Mr. Smith Goes to Washington's a pretty good movie. It illustrates what's going on. By the way, this was Mr. Smith Goes to Washington was I think in the 30s. It was made a long time ago. Jimmy Stewart was the main star in that. But you have parasites like this in the political world who usually don't have a title. Chris Caldwell, he's never run for office himself. I don't even know if he's on a Republican committee. I just know that he gets a badge and goes to committee meetings and shuts them down whenever he wants to. And he's the one who made this slanderous text ad that was done a while ago. So, folks, that's just pretty much it. Those are the things I wanted to talk about. I just want people to know that this is what's going on. Voting is March 3rd. There's been an uptick in the amount of people voting, so you may run into a line. I'm not sure. But, you may want to plan ahead, and you may end up being in the line if that happens. There actually is a Bible verse regarding all this. I kind of sometimes have twisted it to my own thing, and it kind of is a theme regarding this. I'm trying to bring it up here. It's actually Proverbs 11:10, and I've kind of sometimes I misquote it, but I kind of have paraphrased it. But it may have different versions of it, so that's maybe why you have it. I should have saved it as a picture, and now my computer's taking forever to bring it up. While I'm bringing that up, just to let you know, you can follow me at Just the Right Angle on Rumble. That's the best way to follow me. Set up a Rumble account. I get paid a little bit when I'm on Rumble. I don't get paid anything if it's on YouTube. I was on Twitch, and Twitch disconnected for some reason, so I'll have to see what to do about that. But this is the guy I'm fighting against. Well, I'm fighting against both of them, but especially this guy. This is the Chris Caldwell guy I'm telling you about. He's the sniveling coward that needs to be kicked out. And others like him. But regarding both Iran and the Khomeini and Chris Caldwell and others, when the righteous thrive, the city rejoices, and when the wicked perish, there are shouts of joy. Proverbs 11:10. And I'll probably add that as a graphic later on. Anyway, if you have any other thoughts, let me know. My email is keeparkansaslegal@yahoo.com. I'm on Facebook. I have the links there. MeWe, Truth Social, Gab, other places, alternatives to media. Anyway, hope you will have a great day. Don't forget, grow your relationship with God. Find a way to get involved. And find a way to get others involved. This group, Conduit for News, they have a great resource called CFC 75. You can go there and share that with others. If you're like, and when you get asked who to vote for, they can kind of steer. They can give information on how to do that. And they talk about everything from the Aaron Spencer race, which is taking a bizarre turn, to everything else. Anyway, you all have a great day.